Hey everyone, it's Asa, and welcome to my video on Shred, Sunder, and Wound in Set 14. Shred is also known as Magic Penetration, Sunder is also known as Armor Penetration, and Wounding is also known as Anti-Heal. But basically, it's extremely important to have a source of Wound as well as either Shred or Sunder for your primary damage type by stage 5. Um, they're not as efficient as getting your full build on your carry or main tank online earlier in the game, but by stage 5, you have a minimum of 7 full items. So this could be a 3 full item carry and a 3 full item tank, and then you'll have some left over. And at this point, there's nothing as efficient as Shred, Sunder, or Wound. If you are unable to get these for whatever reasons, of course, sometimes you just don't get the components you need. There are some backups you can use. However, none of the units that provide them are completely reliable. So, for example, let's say you're playing a Techies comp, Fiddlesticks and Viegos are both Techies. Even if you have both of these units in your comp, it is still worth it to build a Stack Shiv or a Spark, assuming you have your main carry with 3 items and your main tank with 3 items. It's just not reliable enough for these units. Renekton, I think, is kind of a unique case. Renekton is fairly reliable. He hits a 2 hex AoE around him, but the burn only lasts 5. The wound only lasts 5 seconds, whereas any of these items last. Well, the Morello and Sunfire last 10 seconds. Red buff is just pretty consistent. So in general, you're always, if your main damage type is physical, you're always going to want Even Shroud or Last Lister. But if you can't get it, you might try to think about how to fit in a Jhin into your comp late game. Darius, I think, will die too early, but you can make modifications. I wouldn't just play a Darius that doesn't give anything else, but if you're playing a Bruiser board, I'd be willing to play a Darius over like a slightly stronger Bruiser if you really need the armor penetration. So basically, yeah, Darius and Jhin provide Sunder. Over here, I marked Samira and Jarvan, who both provide flat armor reduction. This is a little bit different. So Sunder is percent armor reduction. Um, I put these over here because flat armor reduction actually synergizes positively with Sunder. Basically, if you already have Sunder, it makes flat armor reduction even better. Whereas Sunder does not stack with itself. So, for example, if you already have Eva Shroud, then building a Last Whisperer is pretty inefficient because a lot of the resources that you're spending into that Last Whisper, most of the cost is the Sunder. So again, if you already have Sunder through Even Shroud, or there are other sources as well, such as the support item Black Cleaver, basically if you already have it, then it's pretty inefficient to build a second source of it because it does not stack. However, it makes flat armor reduction better. Same thing with Shred. You'll always almost want Spark or Shiv if your main damage type is Magic, and flat magic reduction, Elise, and Alawi become better if you already have Shred. Wounding, these are your 3 items for it. Merlot and Red Buff are better in the late game, just because uh, you can spread to your entire enemy team. If you think about an opposing board that's level 8 or level 9 with, let's just say, 8 units, Sunfire is actually not going to spread to their team that fast. Um, Let me just double check here. The effect on Sunfire Cape is every 2 seconds it burns 1 unit, and it also has a small range. It's only 2 hexes, right? So let's say 8 seconds into the fight, you will have only burned their front line, and at that point, it's also like you would have just burnt like their fourth frontline unit. So this is actually pretty inefficient later game. However, it's a lot stronger early game just because you get the burn off right away. Whereas a lot of times in the early game, you're not going to have a unit cast and hit multiple units by 2 seconds later, where you could already burn 2 seconds into the fight, your Sunfire Cape may already burn 2 units, which can be half the enemy team on stage 2, right? Like they're only gonna have 4 units total, so burning 2 units right away is going to be better than waiting for Morello to cast. Red buff does only burn for 5 seconds, but it tends to be pretty uh, consistent because normally you're gonna have it on a unit that will just be attacking constantly, and even if it's not casting every 5 seconds, it should be pretty close to 5 seconds, especially because the red buff gives a lot of attack speed by itself, which will help that unit cast. So later on, red buff and Morello are preferred to spread it as much as possible. You want to hold these on units that will hit as many targets as possible with their ability. Um, yeah, there's some support items. I guess one support item in particular that can burn as well, Eternal Flame. There's augments like Blistering Strikes, but basically Wound and Burn does not stack, so you only want one source of it. Yeah, some good holders in the late game, for example, could be like an Aurora. It's like the entire enemy team when she casts. Um, maybe, but basically, yeah, just units that hit a lot of units. You can even use a frontliner like a Sejuani. You'll tend to hit a lot of enemy units. Um, Typically with red buff, I would always want this on a carry because the base stats are so important, the 35% attack speed. Whereas Morello, a lot of the value is in the 150 health, so you can actually use this on a frontliner and it's fine. One last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up this video is what if you have mixed damage, let's say you're half physical and half magic damage. In that case, it can be expensive, but you often want Sunder and Shred in that case. That's one reason that there's not too many comps that are kind of split 50-50 throughout the history of TFT. A lot of the meta comps tend to focus in one damage type or another, and because Thunder and Shred are so efficient in increasing that damage type's effectiveness, that that's why you don't see that many mixed damage comps. There might be some. Obviously, it's very, very early in the PvP cycle for set 14, so I don't really know what to expect yet. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions on Sunder, Shred, and Wound in the Discord. Thanks for watching.